alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Now, most pool sand filters are basically the same. They've got water that runs through sand that's then sucked through a strainer at the bottom of the filter. And it's the sand that really clears the water of any debris. My pool sand filter was located underneath this deck, which is a nice way to hide it. But because I didn't build the deck quite high enough, I wanted to give myself a little bit extra room, so I'm going to dig it out. So in order to change this filter, you don't have to disconnect everything, but I did, really because I wanted to lower the whole filter. The sand filter, you're going to disconnect the top assembly. Usually there is a clamp with a couple of screws, but however yours is attached, just disconnect that, and you're going to want to take off that entire top assembly. Usually they just wiggle and pull straight out. There's an O-ring seal, of course. And that white PVC tube that you see sticking up the center of the sand filter bowl is going to be the lateral assembly. That's a pipe that runs down through the sand, and at the bottom it's attached to a variety of different screens called laterals. Now those laterals can be individually screwed into a center hub, or in many cases it's called an umbrella lateral assembly, and they just kind of fold so that you can take out the assembly. In order to remove the sand, you can either scoop it out by hand, and because my whole filter was disconnected, I just turned it over. But a much easier way to do it, if you're not going to tip over your filter, is just to use a wet dry vac to suck out all that sand. Then you're going to remove that entire lateral assembly, and this is really just the screen at the bottom of the filter that allows water to get sucked through it, but not sand. It's usually the laterals that will have a crack in them that will allow sand to get into that assembly, and therefore the telltale sign is that you will end up with sand near the jets of your pool, inside the pool. So clean off this entire lateral assembly, inspect each one of those laterals or each one of those screens. Usually when you have sand near the jets of your pool, you will find one of those laterals is cracked. And of course at the same time you want to clean out the entire inside of the bowl. This way when you add brand new sand and a repaired or a new lateral assembly, you're basically going to start out with a new sand filter. See, now if you look real close, you can see sand on the inside of my laterals. So I know that there's a leak. I didn't see one on each one of the laterals when I inspected it. I am going to tap each one of those with a screwdriver just lightly, just to loosen up the sand that's in there and see if I can wash it all out. And then I'll take another real good look with a flashlight to find where the leak is coming from. When I turned the lateral assembly over, I found my problem. The bottom cap of this assembly was actually loose. Now this cap is non-removable. It should be secured, glued in place, but that's basically the problem. So in this case, it wasn't the laterals, it was the lateral hub that had a crack or had a leak, and that was sucking sand directly from the sand filter and blowing it into my pool. So this is not repairable. Off to the pool supply store, or you can get them online. Just make sure you look at the tag on your filter and get the model number of your particular filter, and they will sell you the appropriate lateral assembly. And of course, at the same time, you want to pick up some new sand. This particular filter holds almost 300 pounds of sand. Putting it back together is just basically doing everything in reverse. You insert the lateral assembly, open up all of the umbrella arms, place that at the bottom, keeping that tube in the center of the hole. The important thing here is that you do want to plug that tube. You can use a tennis ball and tape it with some duct tape in position. You can just use a rag and shove it into the hole, but one way or the other you want to plug that hole so that when you go to attach that upper assembly slides directly into that PVC pipe. If you add a ton of sand, you will not be able to reposition that pipe. So you have to add a little bit of sand where you can still reposition it, get it centered, and then add the rest of the sand very carefully.